Hey everybody, welcome. Glad to have everybody on. Welcome back to another great webinar with the team. We've got myself, Brandon Clymer, Chief Development Officer, the guy that makes things happen a lot of times. Call myself the gopher. Carl Steinman, COO, Chief Ops guy, the guy that keeps us in line. And then Jeff Borders, the man with the vision and our fearless leader. So thanks everybody for jumping on. Excited to share with you what we have going on. We've gotten a ton of questions and we definitely appreciate that as we've spoken the last couple weeks. A lot of exciting things coming. So yeah, a little bit about today. We're talking about the future. There's been a lot of turmoil going on, a lot of crazy things in just the past 2 weeks in the US particularly, but as we know, it's turmoil across the globe. It seems like more and more. So, looking at, how can you control your future today? What are things that you can do to set yourself up for success in case the worst thing happens to protect you and your family? So as we've discovered in our last previous calls, a little bit about us, we are an operation in Zambia, particularly opening up emerging markets. How can you get in there? How can you set yourself up for success? What are the risks that you face with that? And how do we mitigate those risks anytime that you're looking to move? So it's all about opportunity and how you can get the maximum return with the minimum risk. And that's our goal, is to educate you all and to provide some knowledge that hopefully you find helpful. And at the end of the day, you can set yourself and your family up for success for the future. So some of the things that we'll be talking about today, we'll go into a little bit of the strategic importance of global land acquisition, go into emerging markets as well and touch in on that a little bit, talk about some of the risks that are facing the world today and how you can mitigate those and protect yourself if the worst thing happens, God forbid. So we'll go ahead and get started here and we'll go ahead and dive right in. So Jeff is going to talk a little bit about the strategic importance of land acquisition across the world. And there's nobody better. He's coming to us live from Thailand right now. Just the guy's a global citizen.
Yes, I'm in Phuket now in Thailand. It's about 10 p.m. So yeah, it's great to be here, and then I'm excited to share some key insight on what's happening around the world and the sentiment and why now is the best time to diversify.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean it's crazy every time that we talk to Jeff. I get excited to see where he's at in the world and what kind of new things he brings to the team. He's brought great opportunities, as we discussed in our last webinar, about how everybody can own land and you don't have to be a millionaire or a billionaire, Elon Musk or Bill Gates or somebody like that, to purchase your own piece of paradise and to acquire property in different emerging markets to where you can control it. Why don't you go ahead a little bit into some of the importance and how we got here and how we can protect ourselves and what it's going to take.
Yeah, so I made a small presentation, kind of give some insight as far as like from a high level overview, and when we look at an empire, and if we can understand the wave of the ups and the downs, investors tend to follow these trends, and that's how they're able to invest at the right time. See if I can share my screen. Let me know if you can see my slide.
Yeah, good thing we're not using Microsoft. Ooh.
All right. So basically, diversification is key. I title this "The Rise of Global Land Ownership: The Changing World Order," right? And there's a very, very key character in this, is one of the greatest hedge fund manager in the history of hedge fund manager, Ray Dalio. And as he's retiring now, he's able to like kind of share his wisdom with us. And one of the book that he wrote was The Principle for Dealing with the Changing World Order and it kind of map out a cycle of what empires go through, right? He outlined 18 key cycles, and a lot of people are saying the U.S. is in a very interesting key point now. Five of the key metrics that typically shows a decline in an empire, we're facing it. There's internal conflict, high rising debt. I don't want to go into that, but the point is right now we're in a very, very, very interesting point where if we don't pivot, we may call it we just celebrated a 248-year anniversary last month or this month. So we think this empire has a lot more steam left, and I'm definitely bullish in America. It's just good to know as an investor to edge and diversify, right? 10 to 15 uncorrelated asset is necessary for you to survive because you never know where the pin will fall. But the main point is all empires rise and fall, right? No matter how long it is, China has gone four different cycles already throughout for thousands of years. Sometimes they last a few hundred years, others longer. The Dutch Empire, for example, lasted 400 years. And as a young nation, right, I think we have a lot of lessons to learn, a lot of humility to acquire, but we also have a lot to offer in form of innovation. And I think the world just started to see what America has to offer. So as we're promoting land in Africa, we think this is the globalization is key to the growth and direction of America. You can see now there's more interest in investment in Africa and around the world. And you see a change because the old school uh, come in and then create dysfunction doesn't work anymore. So we see a change in positioning, right? So for me, I'm like, why invest globally? I'm quite bullish from as an investor. A lot of my assets sits in the U.S. and then they're gonna stay there. But I also look at ways to enter new markets, and that's how I got into Zambia 12 years ago, right? And if you look at the portfolio that I hold in the Balkans, Latin America, because we just never know what's gonna happen. And I think my team, my executive team, Carl, Brendan, we both know as much as we love our country, we just never know. Even if it's a 10 years of downside, we want to make sure our families are always protected. So lesson from history shows diversification is key. And from us, we see investing in stable emerging markets like Zambia. And I think Zambia is a very, very special place because of the stability, the price. It doesn't get any better, right? There's not a lot of places where you can go in and acquire land or asset at the price point and still have the political stability that Zambia offers. So again, 10 to 15 uncorrelated asset class is key for most savvy investors. And I believe we mentioned that 5 to 6% of people who are investing in emerging markets, investors, savvy investors, they put 5 to 6% of their investment on emerging markets, right? Outside of their core asset classes. So for me, I think Zambia is a very special place. I wanted to kind of like open this up. We do have a fund. Our fund is growing. We have interest growing there. But as we're creating the fund and as people are coming in and asking us questions, what I'm seeing is a demand for people are raising their hands, say, how do we acquire land in Zambia? How do we own a piece of land in Zambia? How do a non-Zambian, a non-investor in Zambia, own a piece of land, right? So we created a product specific for that. And I'm going to try to simplify this. We only have 30 minutes. But the main thing is we made it so easy that any American now can enter the market and buy 10 acres of land in Zambia without having to go to the long legal loophole that we had to go through, right? So we created a framework to make it easy for anyone, no matter who you are, to be able to acquire land in Zambia. So for me, I believe Zambia is great because of the global shifts. I'm here in Thailand. This island is called Russian Island. The war against Ukraine has changed the landscape. Most Russians are running away. They're in Georgia. I went to Tbilisi last year. It's like most of the cafes or the bars we're entering, restaurants, it's like you hear Russian all over the place. And what's happening in the future, we just don't know where the world's going to be. And a lot of these Russians, they diversified their portfolio way before because of the history of the former Soviet Union. They were easily able to pivot into a new, safer place for their family. And for me, I think Zambia is safe. When you look at for 12 years, we've never had any issues. Of course, as a business, you always have risk, but the risk are not risks that you won't find in the US. So I think there's a lot of practical step because Zambia is a leasehold land country, meaning when it comes to acquiring land, you're gonna have to lease the land. So what we've done is we've created a lease structure where you can acquire the land and basically technically own it, because for 90 years, you can do anything you want on the land, whether it's building, whether it's farming, whether it's just holding it, just to say you hold it and transfer it as an asset towards your legacy. And we see this because what 25 years ago, Brazil had a similar boom where buying land in Brazil was like dirt cheap. Now, if you're trying to buy 1 acre anywhere in Brazil, you're gonna pay the price. So we think right now we're here in Zambia. I can tell you right now what happened with Vietnam just last month. They signed a deal with the Zambian government to grow rice in the northeast region of Zambia, and acreage are going up to 12,000 per acre. That's basically the investment format. So when we say you can buy land from us for as low as $500, that's unheard of. And we know next year is going to be impossible to acquire land at that price. That I can tell you.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. And you know,
yeah,
you mentioned that about having the stability and especially in what's happened recently just in our country. I mean, a president attempted assassination, that is unheard of.
massive.
And exactly. And when we look at, you know, where you're at there with the Russians, everybody's leaving, going to other countries. It's important to have a place to go. And God forbid the US does go to a civil war. What do you do? Where do you go? Because at that point, unless you have a priority over people who don't acquire anything, who have no interest in the country, you're just a refugee. And at that point, you're in a tough spot to be in. So great points bringing up that. And, you know, that's a great point and something that hits home to be prepared for.
That's right. And I just want to conclude that we're going to make it easy as you acquire land with us. We're going to provide expert support. We have a wait list, and I think we'll give more information before we wrap up. You join our wait list, and we create a priority list. The wait list is growing very fast. It's going to be on a first come, first serve basis. And we'll be able to kind of show you what we have. You'll be able to select your land. There is a deposit process. We made it so easy to acquire land in Zambia, where literally anyone with a credit card can do it. So I'm just going to pass it over to you and Carl to kind of continue on. I just want to kind of focus, created like an area to say, now is the time to invest. And with Acres Club, you're able to do it a lot easier than ever before.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we're so grateful that you're able to get in and get those connections. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people who are not in a country or citizens of it can't come in and acquire any property. So thankful for you and your business and what you do to bring in that relationship that allow us to have that opportunity and then to give that opportunity to others so that at the end of the day, worst comes to worst, they know that there's a safe place to go, a place that they can visit. I know Carl, there's even a case study of another village or I guess a resort
Yeah,
membership
yeah,
style
actually,
there in Zambia. Yeah.
for sure. And I can talk just briefly about it. There's a large, maybe 700-acre tract of land that they're actively selling 1 acre lots for $50,000. It's not that far away. Maybe, I mean, maybe you call it an hour and a half away from the land we have. And yes, there's some infrastructure that makes it a little bit more valuable. You know, ours is currently raw land, but is being developed around the area, which is exciting. And I, you know, yes, we've touched on diversifying a portfolio, having 10 to 15 non-correlated assets. You know, why did I invest in Zambia and this beautiful opportunity? It's because I do own real estate. I've seen it go up in value in the US. You know, I own in all parts of the country, and it's been great. You know, Zambia is a beautiful location. Jeff's been operating a business there for over a dozen years. It's got a stable government and economy and some really attractive, I guess, laws that are trying to attract foreign investment. I just love tangible land, right? So I just love like actually owning something. And you know what I wanted to talk about, because we talked about, you know, obviously some of the turmoil across the world, you know, but I'm going to focus on what I see as such a positive thing happening in Zambia. And that's number one, just look at the region it's in. It's, you know, right now there's maybe 85% of the land is mineral rich. It's fertile, arable land for growing farmland. Our other thesis that we've talked about on this webinar is developing commercial farming and bringing the best in class agri-tech solutions to feed a growing population. There is the entire continent of Africa has a very young population, and they are producing offspring higher than anywhere else in the world. And people are going to need places to live. People are going to need food to eat, and we're trying to solve the food security, right? So I'm just talking about big picture, why this area, and that growing population expected to double. Zambia is about 20 million, just over 20 million, and expected to double within the next maybe 30 years. There's been an incredible amount of interest. And there's no secret. You can read tons of articles about it. We've highlighted a few things here about minerals, right? There's this push for EV, the EV market. There's a push for, everyone's got a smartphone with some critical minerals in there like cobalt. Well, these are mineral rich area, right? So there's big transportation and railways moving in that converge up on this property. So anytime there's major logistics hubs that go from the center of the continent to the surrounding oceans, there's going to be development that moves around there. So we're really targeting farmland, and we're allowing this opportunity because we were blessed with the opportunity to acquire a large tract of land. Our plan for farming is only using about 25% of it. So we were going to invite folks to for the opportunity to acquire land alongside with us for whatever development projects. If you've seen any of our other webinars, it's all about attracting investment opportunities to this region. If you've been there, then I think you'd all see it, right? So, Zambia, just from a geography standpoint, it's surrounded by 8 countries that all have the need for food security as well. So very exportable products that could be moved in and out of that country.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's so many great points, and we've talked about that numerous times, and you just can't reiterate it enough about the value that it brings to those that are interested in looking and having an opportunity, and people that are forward thinking and not worried about, what am I going to do? I mean, those who are like, okay, worst case scenario, something happens, and at the end of this year, you could have a civil war on your hands if, Trump doesn't win, or they think that there's something with the election. I mean, it's scary to think about where the US is as a country. And then on top of that, what else it's connected to? I mean, where else are you going to go? You can't go to Europe because they're 100% dependent on us. And if the US is interfighting and has a civil war, then we can't protect them. We can't help them. It's also the reserve currency. So now all of a sudden world trade is hurting. And so whoever trades the most with the US is going to be impacted the most, obviously. So you're talking China is going to be a big impact. We are their biggest client. And if all of a sudden we're not buying stuff, then that hurts them. Russia, they've got their own issues in general. So it really puts everything into a turmoil. And when things are messed up, you go back to Darwinism and survival of the fittest. And that's, how do I protect my family? What can I do to set myself up so that if worst case scenario, we have a place to go, we are safe, we can live our lives and not worry about what we're going to do tomorrow to survive. And so that's what looking at people acquiring land in Zambia is. It's a hedge, just like Ray Dalio talks about having different non-correlating assets. And so when you talk about having that property, it's the same thing. You could go to Mexico, not exactly that safe, maybe South America, Western Europe, or even Eastern Europe. But at the end of the day, all of those are very, very connected to the US. And so when that goes down, or if it goes down, then it's just going to be a domino effect around it. And so the hedge and the non-correlation is looking at, okay, what's stable and what is not tied to where the rest of my assets are. Zambia is a prime location. There's other places around the world, but this is one of the best from what we found. And for $500 an acre, that's big peace of mind to be able to have that. We're selling them off in 10-acre parcels with a 20% deposit to lock in the spot. So that's a small amount to have peace of mind for your family and knowing that no matter what, your future is set. Even if nothing does happen, now you've got an appreciating asset because at the end of the day, they're not making any more land, period. What we got's what we got. Until Elon can figure out how to get us to Mars or wherever else we're going to have a second colony, you're stuck here on Earth. So why not have options? I mean, that's really the best thing is having options means that you're safe. When you're stuck in one decision and that decision goes away, you're screwed. So we've got the option to be able to come in and acquire that land. We've got the website, the app, all that's live. All you have to do is just email us. Contact information is sent out whenever you signed up for this webinar. So encourage you to take a look. If it's something that you're like, hey, I know that I want to be protected and I want to watch out for my family and I'm a forward-thinking person, great. Some people aren't like that, and that's fine. We are the ones that are, hey, looking out for everybody's best interest, and we want everybody to succeed. Last thing we want to do is people come to us when shit hits the fan and we're like, sorry, there's nothing we can do. So planning ahead or plan to fail is a big thing that we always look at. So looking at, some other risk factors and mitigation strategies with land ownership. I mean, Jeff's really the best person to talk about that. I know we're kind of getting tight on time, but you can kind of just touch on that for a brief minute. I know you talked about it in your slide presentation, but if you can just touch on that again, and then we'll get to some questions. You're muted, Jeff.
The risk is usually around when you're dealing with untitled land. So by the time someone's coming over to acquire land with us, they'll be dealing with titled land. And then the sublease agreement that we have in place offer all the provision and protection necessary for them. Everything is done by the book. We have land commissioners that are approved by the Ministry of Land to ensure that we're above board. So their asset is protected for 90 years, and we put a first right of refusal in the contract. So as they renew after 90 years, whether it's themselves or their grandchildren, they'll get the first right of refusal. And if they decide in 90 years this is no longer an investment for them, whoever the investor is, then we absorb the land. However, they are the first person who can say, yes, I want to continue. So technically it's in perpetuity. The ownership is in perpetuity. And when you think about that, the leasing agreement is the best way to ensure that you hold your asset. You can build whatever you build. If you discover mineral, it's just a matter of applying for a mining license, for example. So literally anything you can do with a titled land, you can do it with a leasehold structure. So it's not as difficult. The difficulty is when you're buying traditional land, and usually there's land dispute. And what I love with Zambia now, since the time I've entered the country, you can literally go into the Ministry of Land website. You can map out the land you're acquiring from us, and you can see who's the owner. So the owner will be the same owner on the contract. So you're dealing with real, genuine land sellers. So, and plus we're here. A lot of the buyers that we're dealing with are going to be from the US, never been to Africa. They're simply edging themselves. So it's great to know that you have three sources and an army behind us of support team to ensure that as you have questions, all your questions are answered, whether it's taxation, how do you pay your taxes on your land? We manage all of this for you. So the process is only complicated only when people perceive Africa, they perceive complication. But Africa has evolved a lot in the past decade. I've seen it myself, from entering the country to not being able to access the internet, to being able to have better internet structure than even when I'm in part of the US. So I could say the world is changing. And I want to basically make a call to action. We need to constantly revise our outlook on how we perceive the world, because it's not a static position. Like, if you see what happened to Dubai, 30 years ago, Dubai was just an empty desert. right?
Yep.
In less than a generation, the sheikh turned a desert into one of the primest, most sought after real estate. So I welcome investors to kind of continuously revise their position. And I think Zambia right now, this is the best place, the best time to enter Zambia.
Yeah, that's a great point, and actually leads into I think a question that we have here. So, what are the primary benefits of investing in land in emerging markets compared to more developed regions? And a lot of that is the foresight, obviously, to see what's coming. And Dubai is a great example because now to purchase something in Dubai is astronomical because it's already developed. The risk is gone. Nobody has to worry about anything. It's already desirable. Same thing if you want to go buy something in Manhattan or anywhere else in a developed, you want to go buy something in London or Paris. It's very, very expensive. So the benefits are a lower barrier to entry. So at a purchase price that makes it attainable to those who don't have 6 zeros behind their bank account, right? So you can actually be on the forefront and have a little peace of mind knowing that you're acquiring and controlling parcels in growing economies where you can have your family, you can farm, you could do minerals, you can do whatever you want with it, but you have options, and options are safety.
Right.
So let's see here, looking at so another question here, what are the future trends do you see as the global land market, and how can I position myself to take advantage? Jeff, do you want to tackle that one?
I can share what I'm doing from personally. Like I would say right now, I'm bullish in the US. I'm bullish in Africa, especially Zambia. So whatever extra we have here, we're putting it in Zambia. And we do see new markets. Like for example, I'm walking around Thailand. You're seeing land as close 6,000 square feet going for like $250,000. Like, and then when we look at what you and I'm like, how did that happen? It happened because a war happened and Russians are running here and they're trying to find places to put their family, right? So we're
Yep.
seeing it here. We don't have to be, we're not like, we're just seeing the trends. And the trend is the world is shifting. And for Americans, it's going to be different. We're going to need places to go to where that aligns with our value system. And Zambia is super aligned with our value system. We have a democracy. It's a Christian nation. So what I see happening is as people feel unsafe in their countries, they're going to find other hubs to go to. You see Latin America, Mexico, for example, is growing. Land is too expensive to acquire in Mexico. Plus, if there's a conflict, Mexico will be one of the first to feel the pain of that conflict since it's so dependent on the US economy. So, like I
Yep.
said, this is the trend that I'm seeing. And I think Africa, massive movement of moving in Africa, not just in Zambia. We chose Zambia because of just simply the political stability and the alignment and the history and the expertise that we have for over a decade. However, I think Africa is basically the next play.
Yeah, that's a prime example, and it's a great way to wrap up this webinar with a great vision of what the future is. So those that are interested, we've got the waiting list. I know that we've had some people reach out a couple of times. Please be patient. We're trying to get to everybody. So go ahead and reach out to the team, and then we would love to work with you and make sure that you're set up for success for the future. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks all.